Hey everyone, welcome to Revenue Management, Reservations, and Distribution Channels. First question, three questions actually. Can you define these terms and provide an example for each? So, what is a distribution channel? What do we mean by channel production? And what are distribution costs? Well, sounds like a distribution channel is somewhere where buyers and sellers are going to come together and purchase your product. So when we're referring to hotels, we're discussing where a buyer can buy a hotel room. The channel production is how much or how many transactions are made by that channel. Okay, so let's use the example of Central Reservations. Okay, so you call into Central Reservations, that's the channel, and the channel production is how many hotel rooms did we sell through Central Reservations, and finally, do we have any costs associated with selling through Central Reservations? Okay, do we have to pay the Central Reservations agent? Do we have to pay any loyalty fees, things like that? And we'll discuss that definitely at the end of this lecture. But that's ultimately what we mean when we talk about channel production and different channels. Now, in terms of where those channels are or what channels are available, we're going to break it up into four main channels. Okay, so we have the Global Distribution System, otherwise known as GDS. The second is, well, technically it's called IDS, but really what we know is the internet, okay, so the web. And then we have the Central Reservation System, and finally Non-Electronic Distribution. So let's take a look at a GDS first. Okay, so this is more of a professional network. So imagine travel agents, they use the GDS a lot. And typically, so let's say, for instance, you go to a travel agent and you want to book a trip. They're going to look into GDS. Okay, so they have access to these companies, these programs, and ultimately the hotels and the airlines and all of them, that's where they meet. They meet in Sabre and Amadeus. This is considered all the GDS. Okay, that's where the travel agent's going to look online. That's where the hotels are going to provide their information. And again, you might be a consumer looking for a trip, or sometimes as businesses, they're going to go to travel agents or corporations, and they're going to help, the travel agent's going to help book them those rooms. So what does a GDS look like? Well, here you can see nice DOS-based system, okay? And again, it's a little technical. That's why typically you need a little bit of training to be able to use the GDS. There's a lot of codes. You need to know all your airport codes, all your rate codes. But for instance, in this case, we're looking for a hotel that's close to the airport. Okay, so this is the actual distance from the airport. Okay, and again, these are the hotels that show up. So we have our rates, our ranges, and we even have our amenities that are available as well. So again, this is somewhere where the buyers, okay, so those travel agents are going to come, and the sellers, of course, the hotels are going to be listed onto here. Now, as a revenue management, when you have your property listed on a GDS, so it's really important to obviously have a good relationship with them, make sure that you're paying your commissions properly, make sure that you're accurate and up to date on your listing. Okay, so again, we saw those amenities, make sure that's correct, make sure the distance from the airport is correct. All the information is important, okay? And hopefully you have a good relationship with the travel agents. That way you can hopefully get better listings. You can pay for better listings, but ideally you just want to make sure that your information is up to date. Now let's move on to our internet distribution. This is more commonly what we're more familiar with is just booking online. Okay, so this is something that most of us are probably familiar with. I'm sure Expedia and Priceline, quite more common. TripAdvisor, of course, is becoming popular as well. So again, this is another channel where you as a consumer, or perhaps you as a supplier, when you're deciding where you want to allocate your channels, or you want to allocate your hotel rooms, where you want to sell them through the RevSim, this is where you would be offering your hotels through third party. Okay, so Expedia, very popular, right? But we'll talk about some of the drawbacks of booking or having your hotel listed on Expedia at the end of this lecture, but of course some management tips. Okay, so now again, remember when we talk about forecasting, what happens if you expect to be really busy and you only have 10 rooms to sell? You know you're going to probably sell those rooms directly. You don't need to rely on Expedia. Well, maybe you don't want to sell those rooms on Expedia, okay? And we'll talk about why later on, but ultimately it might be more profitable for the hotel to sort of sell directly instead, okay? So again, really, when you're looking at Expedia, it's really important to look at your net ADR, and we'll talk about that as well at the end. So we want to really monitor the gross contribution, okay? Is it profitable for us to have so many rooms sold through third party? That's the main focus when we're looking at managing. Now, also what you can, when you sell on the internet, you don't have to sell through third party. You can sell through your own company website, okay? So Brandcom, and that's really not obviously, but it is very beneficial, and we'll talk more about that later on, to sell direct. In order to do that, you want to make sure, for instance, that you have proper search optimization. So hopefully when people put in keywords, let's say they say Vancouver hotel, your hotel might show up if you're in Vancouver. You want to make sure that your own website has really good photos, really up-to-date photos. Everything is accurate, maybe some good videos. Just keep things fresh, keep things current. And hopefully you can incorporate some link strategies. Okay, so if there's an event going on, maybe at the convention center, you want to make sure that when those words are typed in, they are connected to your hotels. And you can monitor a lot of this through Google Analytics, actually, which is really helpful to see how valuable these strategies are. Now, very important, obviously, to manage all this on the web. Okay, so even similar in the RevSim, when you look at your reputation management, okay, when those comments come in, those are very important to monitor. That's no different, obviously, in the real world. Look at your TripAdvisor rankings. Again, you've done that price-value matrix. You know how important that is to see the price-value relationship. So having guest feedback regularly monitored, using that data to analyze whether or not you're pricing appropriately can be very helpful. Can also help you, as you recall, how to improve your property, seeing what deficiencies you might have based off of guest feedback. So very important to monitor this channel. Next main distribution channel, okay, is central reservations. So, for instance, Coast Hotels, Pan Pacific Hotel, all of these hotels, these brands have a central reservation system. So in other words, if I want to call and I want to make a booking for any of these hotels, I'm going to call to a central reservation. Okay, and they may not be located even within the same country as the hotels, but that's where the central reservations are made. Okay, and then they are going to be sort of made on behalf of your hotel. Now, some of the challenges with central reservations, okay, is that sometimes, again, if and this actually does happen sometimes with the certain hotels, where the central reservations are made outside of the country, outside of the continent sometimes, so they don't have a good understanding of your hotel. So they might not know, they might not even understand postal codes, they might not know the right time zones. So it's really important to have a good relationship with the people at central reservations. If you're a revenue manager, just maybe even consider visiting them. Make sure that the room types are correct in the system, okay? And even yourself, maybe you call in and ask questions. Make sure that they're knowledgeable, because it can be challenging for these central reservation agents to have a good understanding of your hotel. They may have never been to your hotel. So it's really important to give them as much information as possible. Hopefully you can meet with them and educate them and give them the right information to communicate to the guests. But again, another opportunity to sell hotel rooms. And again, as a revenue manager, you want to decide where you want to offer these rooms, which channels do you want to offer. And we'll talk more about that when we discuss the costs associated. Finally, we also have the opportunity for non-electronic distribution. Okay, so if people still call in and they want to make bookings, people can walk in. That's also considered non-electronic. Of course, group sales, even having information available to convention bureaus, those are all considered non-electronic distribution.